My childhood memories about the holidays were food, music, and family. I feel like those were the main components. I know that we were going to eat some food that we didn't eat any other time of the year.
Yes.
I know that there was going to be some music that is played in the house only during this time of the year, and we would gather with more intentionality than any other time of the year.
I'm the oldest in my family, so
Mhm.
I have the memory of having
Mhm.
Christmases alone.
Mm.
so
Talk
so
about it.
so some of my earliest memories and some of the stories that are the funniest to tell was Jamila had so many Christmas gifts that I fell asleep
Mm.
opening up Christmas
Wow.
gifts because there was so many of them. I had to take a nap
Mm.
in between
Mm.
opening them up. And my aunts, who are just not that much older than me, but my aunts who would be there around that time
Mm.
would say everything started off with to Jamila from mom and dad, like to
Mm.
Jamila from mom and dad. So that is still our crack up. And every year for the past several years, I have saved. And in fact, I should have brought one on camera with me. I just found one
Mm.
yesterday when I was cleaning up. I will save at least one gift tag off of my gifts from my parents. And my mother still will always write to Jamila from mom and
So I
dad.
have them to thank
You have them to
for this
thank.
precedent
You
of
have
being
them to thank.
unimpressed by gifts. Basically, I ain't doing nothing. This sister fell
I got so many
asleep.
gifts. I fell asleep. I took a
Well,
nap.
that ain't been our testimony over here, sister.
Welcome to With Love, The Chambers.
Where life, laughter, and lasting lessons meet.
We're The Chambers, a husband and wife navigating faith, family, and everything in between.
Here we share real stories, heartfelt conversations, and a whole lot of love. Because life isn't perfect, but God's grace sure is.
So pull up a seat, grab a cup of coffee, or go ahead and sip that tea, and join us for honest talks, laughs, and the wisdom we're learning along the way. This is With Love, The Chambers.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.coff.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. Now back to the show.
Welcome to another episode of With Love, The Chambers. I am Jamila Chambers here with my very handsome husband, the vision engineer himself, Dr. Rufus Chambers, and we are so excited to share this week's episode with you. This is going to be a fun one because we wanted to talk about what it's like to be home for the holidays. We wanted to talk about our traditions, things we grew up doing, our Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's memories and all the good stuff. So, if you are with your friends and family and you are either starting traditions or implementing traditions from years and years and years ago, this is going to be a good, fun episode for you.
Absolutely.
So, hoping that we're able to share. So, Rufus. Before we get into holiday traditions from years past, tell me about just your thoughts around the holidays. You're one of those people that starts kind of playing that Christmas playlist a little early. So tell me just about your feelings about the holidays and as we go into the end of the year and this season, just what it means for you right now.
Yeah, no, that's a thanks for the segue. Thanks for the setup. Praise the Lord. So the holidays for me always a special time of year. From my childhood up until now, it's a time that it means a lot to me, and I think the nostalgia of the holidays obviously began when I was a child. But as I get older, the holidays represent something different, for me. So I always try and enjoy this time of year to the
Mm-hmm.
best of my ability. And I always try and slow down from the busyness of work and all the things that are happening outside of the home as much as possible, so that it can really be a time of reflection and a time of downshifting and a time of trying to be intentional, with the
Mhm.
holiday. Sometimes responsibilities will be what they are, but at least mentally and consciously I'm trying to downshift. And I tell people that in my profession and in
Yes.
my network, I
Yes.
always tell,
Yes.
hey, I try and downshift. I
I'm
try and take less
downshifting.
meetings. It's not a time of tap dancing, for people, at this time of the year. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's for me. And I guess for you, I feel like we have been in agreement,
Yes.
throughout our lives together regarding the holidays. But what are some of the first things that come to mind for you when you think about the holidays, the season, of the holidays? What say you about the holidays?
I have the same just gut reaction that you have because I had just this wonderful, wonderful childhood and all these
Mhm.
just wonderful childhood memories
Yeah.
of this season. And we're going to share a little bit about
Mhm.
those and about those memories today. But the biggest thing that it has been for me and so much of our lives together at this point has been our
Mhm.
lives as parents, has been kind of creating that
Yeah.
the quote unquote magic of the holidays, for our children
Mhm.
and what it is meant to have traditions as the Chambers family and what those memories have meant and creating those memories for us.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, even professionally and around uh, kind of my own posture to the holidays and this time of the year has always felt like both simultaneously a time of reflection, but then also a launching pad.
That's
And
good.
so much of this season in particular has been not only reflecting about the year and the
Yeah.
accomplishments, but really prepping and planning one of those I'm not going to wait till the new year starts sort
Yeah.
of thing
Yeah.
to start preparing for my objectives the following year, the things that I'm trying to go after. And so it really has been that time of a look back
Yeah. For
for
sure.
me as well. So taking it back,
Mhm.
taking it
Mhm.
back, and we said we were going to start a little bit in our childhood, and it's always very interesting. I am 2 years older than you
Mhm.
chronologically, and for our viewers and listeners, I always have to say chronologically because Rufus is like way older than me the way he act, but 2 years older than you chronologically.
Yeah.
But our parents were born in two different decades. So your parents were born in the 40s,
Mhm.
my parents were born in the 50s. And so sometimes that comes out and that difference comes out around these holiday traditions,
Okay.
the choice of music,
Okay.
the and I'll let you tell your story and I'll jump in with where it's different, but some of the choice of music and some of the traditions are just slightly different
Yeah.
with your parents being just a few years older
Okay.
than mine.
Okay.
So I'll let you start off with talking about just what the childhood experience was like, Christmas traditions were like, memories were like growing up in the Chambers household.
Yeah, I mean, just amazing, amazing memories. I was born, obviously, well, not obviously, but, and that's something I don't want to take for it. I don't want to take for granted that our audience knows us. I realize that every
Yes.
episode, maybe somebody new, so I can't say
Sure.
obvious.
We
You know
and
what
we're
I
always talking
mean?
about, you know us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they may not. So, I was born into a loving home. Rufus and Linda Chambers, older sister Tamika, in Richmond, California, is where I grew up. And my childhood memories about the holidays were food, music, and family. I felt like those were the main components. I know that we were going to eat some food that we didn't eat any other time of the year.
Yes.
I know that there was going to be some music that is played in the house only during this time of the year, and we would gather with more intentionality than any other time of the year. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So, of course, when I'm my earliest childhood memories of being, 3 or 4 or 5, it's all about the Christmas tree. It's all about gifts. It's all about the element of surprise. It's all about when you found out that there was no Santa Claus and it was really your parents that were
Yes.
wrapping at after midnight, on Christmas Eve,
Mhm.
but just wonderful memories. And one thing I thought about is when I think about my parents and when I think even about my grandparents, I felt like they enjoyed the holidays.
Mhm.
I felt like they were just more upbeat. They were, they were relishing or enjoying this season more so than what I would see, when they were just in the grind throughout the year,
Mhm.
So that was kind of fun to watch. You know what I mean? I remember, the music, and for those of you who don't know, the home that I grew up in, we had a fireplace, a brick fireplace,
Yes.
and it had a brick bench where you can sit, in front of the fireplace. So my parents, they used to spread out the albums, in front of the fireplace.
Now let's just pause there.
Yeah,
For those of you that have never seen an album, we're talking about a
yeah,
33 and a third,
yeah,
y'all.
yeah,
that
yeah,
that the albums had
yeah.
album
Album
covers with
covers
distinctive cover
with the
art.
credits, with the
Yes,
credits.
yes,
Yes,
yes. And if
and
you was real slick, that sleeve had the words
that's
to the
well,
side.
yeah.
Now you was real fancy there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but yes,
So
the
so they
album
would
covers.
so when the albums came out and when
Yes.
the decorations came out of the garage, I know we were getting close to the holidays. And my parents, they had a record player in the family room, and but the music would pipe into the living room too, so they would put that music on, and I felt like it would do something to them, you know what I
Yes.
mean? They enjoyed, Johnny Mathis Winter Wonderland album, Nat King Cole, the Christmas song, the Hawkins Family Christmas album, I think, which is finally on Apple Music after all these
And
years.
you've been looking.
I've been looking, and
Yes.
the Motown Christmas album, and just all these Christmas albums will be out. The music would be going, and yeah, I was getting gifts, being, I guess, any other spoiled kid per se. But those memories are forever seared into my conscious. You know what I mean? And I feel like, now as a parent, we realize we don't get those times forever. They're
Yes.
fleeting,
Yes.
so you really got to kind of lean in and take advantage of them. But just and the food, I mean, if we talk about the food, and I felt like my grandparents, I mean, we would host. I feel like my family would begin to host. So,
Sure.
of course, my mom did a lot of heavy lifting, but, my grandfather Ivory, he would bring a dish. And, my grandmother Bugs, she would bring a dish. And my grandmother Dorothy Chambers, she would bring a dish. So it was kind of potluck style, but my mom did the heavy lifting. But just incredible food. And as you know, Jamila, your family is huge. My family is very small. Even when
Mhm.
everybody was living, our
Yes.
family was small. So, there would be more than enough food. So
Yes.
you could just pig out, So we would usually on Christmas, you know, gather at our family for breakfast or something, and then we would go see my father's family in San Francisco for
Mhm.
Christmas dinner formally, and then they would have all kind of food and sweets and everything. But I think the central figure, the signature memories, music, family, and food. And, as we became persons of faith, we obviously know that, the birth of Jesus Christ should really be central, right? In the season and in the recognition and in the acknowledgement. And it is, you know what I mean? It is for us. And I think eventually we'll talk about our memories that we tried,
Sure.
tried to instill in our family, but um, food, family, and music. I mean, those are central. But and I guess for you, you guys had such a huge family.
Yes.
Both of your parents have so many siblings. All of your parents' siblings, kids and everything. What were some of your memories from your childhood?
Yeah, and it's so interesting. Not much. different than
Mhm.
yours. But I'm glad you mentioned the difference with the music because
Mhm.
your music started off with Johnny Mathis and mine started off with more of that Motown sound to
Yeah,
Christmas.
yeah, we had all that. But
And
yeah, yeah, you always know, like,
and yeah,
I don't know
that Temptations Christmas album.
why is Johnny Mathis so offensive to you.
Oh, it's
You
not
you you be
offensive.
like,
No, it's not offensive, but it's always a crack up because your nostalgic memories start back just a little
okay,
slightly
yeah, yeah,
further
yeah,
back
yeah, yeah.
than
My
my
parents were
parents
born in 44
in
and
46
46.
and my parents were born in 50, which is
Yeah,
just a little
yeah,
bit of a
yeah,
difference, but
yeah,
musically, right? They were in
yeah,
high school in different eras and
for
you know, and
sure.
that sort of thing. So musically
Mhm.
and some of the things culturally, it's just a crack up to me for you to be younger than me, but like your version
Yes,
of what is
yes,
old school is so
yes.
much older.
And I need to listen to that stuff
The-
every Christmas. I mean,
yes,
I gotta have
yes.
it.
Yeah. Oh,
With the
absolutely.
modern stuff. I got,
Yes,
my
yes,
lettuces and Will Downies and all that, but
yes,
I do
yes.
wanna hear Winter
Oh
Wonderland,
no, and
Johnny
not
Mathis
only
every
let me help the
Christmas.
listeners. Not only do we hear Winter Wonderland every Christmas, but the album covers come out because you have the
The
Hawkins
Hawkins,
Family
yeah,
album. And
yeah.
then did we ever get a Johnny Mathis album or is that just on the
No.
playlist? Okay.
No, it's just on the
But
playlist.
it's
It's
gonna
just on the
come out.
playlist.
It's gonna come
Yes.
out every Christmas. So I love that, and I love that's why the tradition. So no, it is not offensive, but it is a crack up
Okay. Okay.
that the version of the music starts. So I'm the oldest in my family, so
Mhm.
I have the memory of having
Mhm.
Christmases alone.
Mm.
Uh, so
Talk about it.
some of my earliest memories and some of the stories that are the funniest to tell was Jamila had so many Christmas gifts that I fell asleep
Mm.
opening up Christmas
Wow.
gifts because there was so many of them. I had to take a nap
Mm.
in between
Mm.
opening them up. And my aunts, who were just not that much older than me, but my aunts who would be there around that
Mm.
time would say everything started off with to Jamila from mom and dad, like to
Mm.
Jamila from mom and dad. So that is still our crack up. And every year for the past several years, I have saved. And in fact, I should have brought one on camera with me. I just found one
Mm.
yesterday when I was cleaning up. I will save at least one gift tag off of my gifts from my parents. And my mother still will always write to Jamila from mom and
So I
dad.
have them to thank
You have them to
for this
thank.
precedent
You
of being
have them to thank.
unimpressed by gifts. Basically, I ain't doing nothing. This sister fell
I got so many
asleep.
gifts. I fell asleep. I take a
Well,
nap.
that ain't been our testimony over here, sister.
I
I'm
take
glad you have had that memory.
I take a nap. They come back.
I am so grateful that you have had
That
that
I had
memory.
that I had that experience. So and my mother, I remember always being so over the top with decoration. So she always wanted to quote unquote decorate her home like a department store. So she
Mhm.
was always and still is um into decorating and like
Yeah.
making our home just this, very, very beautiful
Mhm.
a place around the holiday. So it was very much in the same way, really about music. And music, I think for my childhood growing up, my parents were just music people, just in general. So you and I talk often about just these soundtracks
The
that
firefight.
that yes, that narrated our lives as
Mhm.
as children, and I think as parents we're pretty much like that as well. But there was this concept around music. It was always just a ton of family gathering,
Mhm.
and one of the things that was our tradition on Christmas Eve was to do we would sit around, we would have sweets and
Mm.
leave something for Santa,
Okay.
and then we would read the Cajun Night Before Christmas.
So pardon the interruption, who would be at the house on Christmas Eve?
At Christmas Eve, primarily would be my grandmother, Susie, who we called
Okay.
affectionately Noni.
Okay.
And then I remember my younger aunts,
Oh,
Kelly
okay.
and Terry,
So,
would
okay.
primarily be there
Okay.
Christmas Eve.
Okay.
When we would have Christmas Eve at home. When I got to be, say, middle school age, we would
Mhm.
do a combination of things as my siblings got a little bit older. And then we would go to our cousin Sherry's house for Christmas Eve, Sherry and Paul Riddle.
Okay.
And then the
Okay.
Riddles would have us over on Christmas Eve. And
Okay.
and Sherry was just just a masterful
Mm.
decorator and just
Okay.
really created this beautiful, beautiful space and these beautiful memories. And in fact, I have so many wonderful memories of spending Christmas Eve with them as I got older. She
Okay.
gifted me her Black Santa. So
Yeah,
those, yes.
yeah. Yeah,
So
for sure.
I have these memories of being with the Riddles on Christmas Eve, and
Okay.
when I was much smaller at our home on Christmas Eve. And my mother, and I've shared this in previous episodes, they were really like, "We gonna do everything black, right? We got Black Santas, we
Mm.
have our decorations in the
Mm.
home were very much representative of our culture, and we read a book called The Cajun Night Before Christmas. It
Mm.
wasn't just the night before Christmas; it was the Cajun Night Before Christmas,
Yeah.
and I can't remember the author. Y'all gonna have to Google it.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if the book is in print, but in recent years, I would say within the last 10 years since we've been
Mhm.
back living in LA, my mother has gifted me a copy
Yeah.
of that book because
Yeah.
she was able to find it
Yeah.
in print. And that's just a beautiful, beautiful memory of being able to do that. One thing that was also very special around Christmas and around the holidays was that my mother, I think, was one of the first to start the Christmas pajama
Oh
tradition.
my
And
goodness.
she was doing that like back in the 70s and early
Wow.
80s.
Oh,
And
okay.
so shout out to all of y'all that have just joined the last 10 years or so, but y'all super late. Like
Mm.
my mother was doing that.
So who was in those first pictures?
Same folks that are in the pictures now. So it was just the girls.
Okay.
So
But Noni.
it was just the girls. No, it just my sister and I. So
Okay.
when we were
Okay.
small, the Christmas pajama pictures started with my sister Jerry and I.
Got it.
And
Okay.
then as we got older and the trend and the availability of matching pajamas for adults and
Mhm.
children became a thing. Or as my sister and I grew up, right? So we also became young adults and grew up. Then my
Yeah.
mother started getting in the Christmas
Got it.
pajama pictures
Okay.
because we all could find
Okay.
matching pajamas the same size versus finding Christmas pajamas in a 6X and a 4T, right? You
Got
could do
it.
that for little
Okay.
girls.
Okay.
But as we all got to be young adults, then my mother got in the pictures. And then as our children
Mhm.
came along, our girls came along, Winter and Willow, they also, over the years,
Yeah.
from birth until now, we are going to take a Christmas
Got it.
pajama
Got it.
picture. And it was
Okay.
always just the girls. My dad and my brother Jason, they got out the Christmas pajama pictures
Got
just
it.
like today.
Okay. Okay.
They will
Okay.
take the pictures, but they will not be in it. And so that is just a really, really special
Mhm.
childhood memory that I have, and that continues on till today, even over the years. As there were times when you and I were living in the Bay Area, we might have had to take that picture at Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
or we might have had to take that picture into the new year, just
Mhm.
depending on what happened in our adulthood. But that tradition is something that has continued, and it's a time that I cherish. And in fact, my mother every year says, "This is the last year we're going to do it." It's like, no, too late. Too late. We are taking our
Yeah.
Christmas pajama
Yeah.
picture
For sure.
too late. So really, because you and I had that foundation of having these really, really special times
Mhm.
around the holidays and having this extended family and really having family gather and connect and do
Mhm.
all of those things, we have really tried hard to duplicate
Mm.
quite a bit of that as we were raising our girls and as we were creating those holiday moments for them when they were younger.
Mhm.
So I want to throw it back to you and have you kick off this conversation of our Christmas traditions within our home and the Christmas traditions we created for our family when they were small. But we had this little mix of faith in our Christmas traditions, and we and we had some things because we was like super saved right at that time. Once we started parenting, we were
You
like
say past tense. Like we not we not super saved no more.
new to our
We
faith.
was on the cutting
We
edge.
were, yeah, maybe I should say like newer to our faith and like really,
That's it,
really,
yeah.
really, really
Oh
brand
Lord.
new to
Yes, yes,
our faith as it has presented itself in our
yes.
adulthood. So maybe that's the
Yeah,
right thing to say.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
But that really, really played a huge part and a huge
Yes.
role with
Yes.
how we have
We
navigated
was
through
yeah.
the holiday
Yeah.
seasons. And we can get into maybe we'll do that next year. How we
Yeah.
handled Halloween and how we had like,
Oh,
oh, we was real
Lord.
serious,
Yeah.
you know. And
Yes.
so that really, really impacted how we transitioned through the holidays with our kids. And so,
Mhm.
what does it look like? What did it look like in the Chambers household with
Yeah,
when
one
our
thing
kids were
I forgot
younger?
when I mentioned, let me just pivot back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A little bit to the childhood pictures.
Oh,
The power of pictures,
yes.
around the
'Cause that's the only time the
holidays.
camera came
Yeah,
out,
the
by the
the
way.
camera
Yes.
came out, and those pictures would be developed
Yes.
and put it to a photo album. So I feel
Yes.
like every year, because again, there was no cell phones and iPads and all that, you could go back and open up that picture album and look at these moments.
Yes.
And then sometimes your parents would point to a moment that you didn't even remember because you were too young.
Yes.
You're 2 years old, and parents are like, oh, this was this. And your
Or
grandparents
Rufus
do,
performing
you
the
know.
Michael
Yeah,
Jackson.
well, yeah, I can remember that. Yeah, because I
Can
was,
y'all
I was, I
imagine?
was old enough for that.
Can
Oh,
y'all
I was old
imagine?
enough to remember that. You know what
Can
I
y'all
mean?
imagine?
Yeah, with a tie dye sweatsuit on.
Even I had
But
the benefit of looking at the
yeah,
photo
yeah,
album and
yeah.
hearing Rufus dancing like
Hey,
Michael Jackson. Yes.
absolutely. But yeah, pictures were very important. And I think, when we were having kids, our faith was definitely front and center.
Yes.
So I think the way I was approaching Christmas and the holidays was making sure that the kids knew that the reason for the season
Yes.
was not commercialism, but acknowledging the birth of Jesus Christ. And I
Yes.
remember Christmas morning, you know, we
Had a little
weren't,
devotional.
yeah, we were not getting up at the crack of dawn. We
Yep.
would have a little devotion
Yep.
and share our hearts before we would, unwrap these gifts, right? Because we were just being very intentional. I remember if Christmas fell on a Sunday, we
Yep.
would go to church
First.
and then first, and then come back home, and then we could unwrap gifts.
Yep.
So it was it was pretty intentional.
Mhm.
That I think we didn't want our kids to think that this is about Santa and
Mhm.
commercialism and consuming and I think over the years we fell back from some of that. But in the beginning it was intentional. But it was funny. Our kids are still being spoiled rotten
Yes.
in those times because I feel like between grandparents, aunts, they were getting these girls the world. So I felt like sometimes we would kind of get in where we fit in on what was
Mhm.
left to give them because they just had so much, stuff. But of course, we would decorate the home. And
Mhm.
each year I felt like the decorations would kind of grow a little bit. And,
Sure.
in the
Sure.
Bay Area, there was times when we would go get a real tree and,
Yes.
we would have the smell of a tree, in the house. And even figuring out, was a Christmas tree demonic? And we went through all of this
Speak more about that.
stuff.
Speak more
Well,
about that. Yes.
I think in some Christian circles, there is a very high sensitivity to paganism
Yes.
and what traditions are rooted in paganism versus Christianity and what traditions have a shared, you
Yes.
know, relationship between the institutional church and a secular observance.
Mhm.
So I think again, when we were new in the faith, I was really trying to figure that
And
thing
navigate
out
through
to
that.
make sure
Yes.
that I wasn't exposing my kids to something that could be detrimental. And now in this day and age of research and the internet, there have been some very well documented apologetic arguments
Mhm.
for both sides, and some of the people that I really respect have went through and clearly defended. this is not a demonic celebration. You
Mhm.
don't have to do a spiritual house cleaning if you have a tree, in your home. But
Mhm.
at the time,
Sure.
hey, people were, some people were up in arms, but yeah, we would, have decorations, we would have music, we would have pictures, and, we would have food, and, I mean, you would, do a good job, I think, of even our immediate families, but also endeared family friends. You
Mhm.
would try and, okay, well, we need to go by and see such and such. And,
Mhm.
so there were some memories that were created beyond our nuclear family and beyond, our blood family,
Mhm.
with other people. And I think that was a blessing. And, another thing I think we've acknowledged is a lot of our, grandparents have went on to be with the
Yes.
Lord. So now we think about these memories, our families are getting smaller,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And I think even about being an adult now is trying to be sensitive to our parents
Mhm.
in that. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Because it's like, again, your parents on Thanksgiving, y'all can have 100 people
Oh,
outside on the
yeah.
deck,
At least, yeah.
just on the deck.
Yeah.
And now it's not like that. My
Yes.
family, we were never big, but our 15 may have whittled down to,
Sure.
Thanksgiving this year, it was 7 people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that, that it hits different. It
Mhm.
hits different. And now, as being a parent, we both know that our children are they're pursuing their lives
Yes.
aggressively. I
Yes.
think more so than us.
Yes.
So, the likelihood of them being under our roof every holiday moving forward,
Mhm.
that may or may not be the case. You know what I mean? And that's okay. So, but it does make me approach the holidays, with a certain just acknowledgement of these are precious moments.
Mhm.
These are not moments you could take for granted. And even
Right.
some of the memories that I've had, from my child, is like, wow, that was a great, as an example, one year, my father loaded us up in the truck to drive into the Santa Cruz Mountains to cut down a literal Christmas tree. You know what
Love
I
that.
mean? And
Yes.
now,
Yes.
as a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, we just went up there. But now I know, do you know how far Richmond to Santa Cruz is?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But again, it's like that memory
Yes.
is there. You know what I mean? And I remember the gloves. He used to have these kind of brown work gloves, and I think he may have had on some corduroy pants, and
Yes.
it was a
'Cause he had to
thing.
cut down his
Yeah,
tree.
I mean, this stuff is
Yes.
serious. You know what I mean? So, but those memories, when you're in the moment,
Yes.
you don't know how important they are. And I think this is a shout out to parents that are listening, and even
Yes.
children that are listening. Don't take for granted the moments that are made during special times of the year and special
Mhm.
times with your family.
Mhm.
You can't assume that they will be indefinite. You know what I'm saying? Or that they're endless, because they're not. You and I know
Mhm.
they're just not. So, try and that's another thing. I feel like, another lesson learned. I know I'm swerving lanes here, but you know, I feel like family members should approach the holidays, you know, with a certain level of sensitivity.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But running through the holidays like a bull in a china shop
Mhm.
is not good for
Mhm.
families.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Because everybody may be in a different place, a
Yep.
different time, a different season. That's something else, I learned obviously, is that even as it pertains to grief, I grieve a certain kind of way,
Mhm.
but my family may be grieving a different kind of way.
Sure.
So when you approach these holiday seasons, where my grief is at versus where their grief at could be different.
Mhm.
So again, you just can't run roughshod through the holidays.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But yeah, and I think when our children are adults, getting back to your question, uh, I think they'll look at their, childhood around the holidays and prayerfully that they'll have good memories just like
Mhm.
we had good memories. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Prayerfully that, we've tried to, take, a few years, take trips, after the first of the year,
Sure.
and just a long weekend and just kind of go be somewhere
Mhm.
to just close out the holiday season with, okay, we've did whatever we need to do. Let's just take a couple days to just chill together.
Mhm.
Let's shop just a little bit and, just kind of enjoy one another.
Wow, that has been such an amazing conversation that we are going to pause just briefly right here and invite you to join us next week for part two. We are so excited to continue this conversation about the holidays. We got so wrapped up with talking about our memories, got so wrapped up in the nostalgia that we needed to make sure this was 2 episodes. So hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe button. Join us again for part two of At Home for the Holidays next week. We thank you so much for joining us each and every week on this platform, and we appreciate your continued listenership and your viewership. Join us next week for With Love, The Chambers.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.cough.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. We'll see you next time. With Love, The Chambers.
That's a wrap for today's episode of With Love, The Chambers.
We hope you laughed, learned, and felt encouraged along the way.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs a little love and wisdom today.
You can also connect with us online on all social media platforms at Rufus Chambers Online and at Jamila Chambers. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time,
Keep living, keep laughing, and keep learning with love, the Chambers.